Today we have with us a very important person for the World Federalist Movement in India. We have Ms. Rita Kakati-Shah, who is an award-winning gender diversity, inclusion and career strategist, speaker, author and advisor. She is the founder and CEO of UMA, Empowering Confidence, Resilience and Leadership in Women and Minorities. And she is also the founding member of Democracy Without Borders India. Rita began her professional career at the Goldman Sachs in London, where she was awarded the Excellence in Citizenship and Diversity Award. She is also a distinguished alumnus of King's College London and serves on the Advisory Council of King's Business School. Rita is recipient of several international accolades in recognition for advancing gender equality, diversity and inclusion, and youth, women and girls development. So with that, I would request Rita ma'am to enlighten us in regards to Democracy Without Borders as an organization, Democracy Without Borders in India and its role in the Week for World Parliament.
Thank you, Omkar. Greetings, everybody. It's such a pleasure to be here today. So it's taken the United Nations more than 70 years to formulate, conceptualize, and adapt to the reality of the global world we live in, and coin the concept of global citizenship. Ever since the creation of the United Nations in 1945 and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, this concept has been nurtured. Today, global citizenship means going beyond personal, community, and national views to thinking about issues in a truly diverse way that is inclusive to all, so that geography, language, or culture isn't a barrier. Being a global citizen means impacting change and empowerment that fosters respect, decency, and mutual understanding to all citizens. Indeed, the United Nations believes that democracy belongs to its universal and indivisible core values and principles. After all, the organization's charter begins, "We the people." It follows that in this era of globalization, where major public decisions are more and more being taken beyond the nation state, everybody who is fundamentally and directly affected by a decision of a public institution must have the opportunity to democratically participate in the decision-making process. But then the question comes, how exactly do you do this? There is currently no means by which everyday citizens can play a role in the deliberations or decision-making of the UN or of any other transnational organization. This week, the Week for World Parliament, we are gathered in the country with the largest democracy in the world, the second largest population, and a rigorously educated population, with a diaspora migrating overseas and successfully establishing international roots. So it's no wonder that with the mention of the term global citizen, all eyes and ears promptly shift towards India. Democracy Without Borders has been coordinating the Week for World Parliament platform for 7 years, and we are so pleased to see so many other groups drive this forward. Democracy Without Borders strives for a democratic world order in which citizens participate beyond national boundaries, an order based on an equal world citizenship of all citizens and on the principles of federalism, subsidiarity, the separation of powers, the rule of law, fundamental human rights, and the protection of minorities. While advocating ongoing national democratization, the organization focuses on promoting democracy in transnational, regional, and global institutions. Among its global goals is the establishment of a parliamentary assembly at the United Nations as a step towards the development of a global parliament that is jointly elected by all world citizens. The ultimate goal, policymaking that serves the joint long-term interests of all, because the right to democracy transcends national boundaries. The main project that we are working on is the We the People's campaign, which you can view actually more details on if you look at the website www.wethepeoples.org. This is of high relevance because it includes the call for a UN Parliamentary Assembly, which is the first step towards a world parliament and mobilize support from many relevant civil society groups, which are listed on the website. As to the call for a world parliament, it is felt this is very important, especially for the younger, future generation and non-experts to understand that this is a long-term goal, so needs to be achieved over time, especially when we can all see numerous examples of global situations which are difficult and full of tension at the present time in the world around us. These challenges facing humanity, such as pandemics, the climate crisis, biodiversity loss, violent conflict, forced displacement, discrimination, and inequality are global and cross-cutting in nature. With each passing day, they become more and more pressing. International collaboration and global governance need to improve significantly and become more accountable to those affected most, the world's citizens. Another point of importance to consider is the connection between national and global democratization. If democracy does not thrive and move forward nationally, prospects for global democracy and a world parliament are dim. We call on the United Nations and member states to implement 3 specific institutional changes to strengthen the inclusive and democratic character of the UN, namely a World Citizens Initiative, a UN Parliamentary Assembly, a UN Civil Society Envoy. These new tools will help the UN and member states to tackle global challenges more effectively. They will enhance the legitimacy of global governance and facilitate its transformational potential. Tangible changes in the UN's functioning are urgently needed to realize the promise of the preamble of the UN Charter, which begins with the words that we just mentioned, "We the peoples of the United Nations." So we have recently launched Democracy Without Borders India, and our philosophy is Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, which translated from Sanskrit means the world is one family. Our India team consists of Dr. Achyuta Samanta, he's the founding president, Dr. Varun Sutra, he's the founding secretary, and founding members, Dr. Lenin Raghuvanshi, Ms. Nikita Ahya, and of course myself. We are making great progress so far. Our bylaws are ready. The registration process is underway. Social media accounts are active, so please do look us up and follow us. And we are creating awareness on the importance of voting in collaboration with Yuva India. We are also planning a meeting with the parliamentarians this coming winter season. It gives me great pleasure, therefore, to share that we'll soon be formally inaugurating Democracy Without Borders India. As a founding member of Democracy Without Borders India, the Secretary General for the second United Nations Parliamentary Assembly Model Simulation in India, and the founder of UMA in the USA, it has been an honor to deliver this keynote at the WWP closing event, and I thank you once again.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for the wonderful address. With that, taking into consideration the time constraints, I believe we can have 2 questions with ma'am's due permission.
Yes, absolutely.
So if we have any questions for Ritika ma'am, for Rita ma'am, kindly raise your hands. We will unmute you.
Thank you, ma'am, for actually addressing such a vital issue. I hope I'm audible and not just cracking my voice.
I can hear you, Koshiki.
Thank you so much. I completely agree with the phenomena of World Federation, but coming to the fact that democracy is a very vital process of decision making. But democracy has been criticized for being very chaotic, and a lot of people come together and somehow mumble a lot of things which makes no sense. So how will this be addressed in the contemporary generation?
You know, you make a really, really good point. I think with a lot of things in life, when people come together with ideas, that's one thing. But unless you enact them, unless you come back with structure, nothing happens. It's exactly the same thing here. Yes, we have great ideas, we have great plans, but we're setting up the infrastructure. As I mentioned in the speech, it's taken many, many years, over 75 years so far, for the UN to even come to this point of acknowledging global citizenship. Based upon that, there's a lot more structure needed. We're going in the right direction. When we talk about this, you guys, you're the future. It's all about coming together and thinking about how do we enact these changes. Ideas are one thing, but it's you, we the peoples, that have to come together to actually make this a reality.
So I believe that answers your question, Kaushiki.
It definitely does.
Great. That being said, do we have any further questions for ma'am? Okay. Ma'am, I personally had a question regarding our struggle as a whole. We have a lot of countries where people are yet to know about democracy, and countries where monarchies prevail, countries where we have autocratic regimes. So in that case, how do we integrate them into the movement?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think a lot of the issues that we face is about knowledge. Education is knowledge, knowledge is power, and it's the knowledge that actually changes things in the world. So it's really on all of us, each of us as the people of the world, as the citizens of the world, to spread what we know and educate others as well. You know, we come from different backgrounds. We go in different ways to the world. In this remote situation that we are now, we actually can reach many, many more voices. So I think all of us have to think about ourselves and take a responsibility and an onus. Which are the countries, which are the governments, which are the local authorities that we think we can impact? What are we going to do? It's one thing to be a passive watcher. That's one way of doing it too. But we're the change makers. All of us have to take that onus and responsibility to go forward and think, okay, this is the goals. I want to educate one new person today in a different spot. That is grassroots way of doing things. If you spread things on a grassroots level, it's like a domino effect. It expands, it spreads, and that one by one, slowly by slowly, everyone can start becoming change makers as citizens of the world.
Thank you, ma'am. That being said, ma'am, with your due permission, can we entertain one last question?
Absolutely, yes.
Sure. So, Hina, here you go.
Hello, good evening, ma'am.
Hi.
Did you hear me, ma'am?
I can hear you, yes.
Ma'am, you were talking that we can change in this way, in that way. So, ma'am, I personally, I'm not belong to India. I'm a Pakistani person. I am a Pakistani person. So, how can we change? We don't have as much opportunities and as much. What can I say, availability? We just have a single vote. So how can we change our country, our democracy, our so-called politicians, and how can we change our country, our infrastructure? What can we do?
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. Thank you for asking. So here's the thing. There is no one size fits all. You know, if this was an easy question, it would have happened by now, right? And similarly, in all countries around the world, there are some things that are advantageous, some things that aren't. In your case, what you have done is taken the first fundamental step. You are attending this Week for World Parliament. You are becoming a voice. You are that voice in your country. You are representing Pakistan by being here today. You know, speak to friends, speak to people that you study with, work with, and talk to them about your experience here. Talk to them about change them. Talk to them a little about things, because eventually, the more people that talk, the more people that do things, that is how grassroots change happen. There's policy change, there's systemic and cultural society change, and that's what I'm talking about. Yes, governments, over time, that's exactly what we're trying to do here. But let's start with the systemic, the cultural biases that exist. And that is something that comes from each citizen, one person at a time. I hope that helps a little bit.
With that, I thank Rita ma'am for joining us today amidst a busy schedule and enlightening us in regards to democracy, in regards to concepts that we take for granted. And with that, I believe that we are able to succeed in our mission for a better world and secure a better future for all of us. Thank you very much for joining in, ma'am.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, everybody.